Hello guys and welcome, my name is Sint and this is my Path of Exile beginner guide series in which I will teach you everything that you need to know from the very beginning all the way to the end game of Path of Exile, and of course how to beat the end game as well. Now, where do we start? I think we start with the absolute basics of Path of Exile. So ideally you just installed the game, or maybe you're even installing it at the moment, or you played for a couple of minutes, maybe even hours, and you're like completely lost. You have no idea what to do, where to go next, and I'm here to help you out, so don't worry. Before we can actually start playing the game, though, we need to make a decision because we need to choose a league in that we want to play. We do have different options here. We have standard, we have ruthless, hardcore. So what do you pick? Generally, standard is the default game mode. You can always play standard, but it doesn't get new content that often. Like very rarely does standard get new content. And where the most people are at is the normal Sanctum League, or basically the default Path of Exile League. In this case, it is the Sanctum League. Last league, for example, it was Calendar League. So every 3 months, a new league begins, the old one ends. And in this case, the league that is, going on at the moment is called Sanctum. Now you can always, if you're not sure what league to pick, what is the right one, you can always use the yellow sentence at the bottom that says this is the default Path of Exile League, to make a decision, because it will always be the league that has that sentence. Now we do have other options on the bottom. We have Solo Cell Phone and Ruthless, and generally these are only options that are for more experienced players who are looking for more of a challenge because the normal game became too easy for them already and they just want, the run to be a bit more challenging. Okay, with that out of the way, I think we can move on to the next point. So, after deciding that we want to play in the default Path of Exile League, we are faced with another decision, because we will have to pick a class that we are going to play. Now, I know everyone has a favorite playstyle, right? Whether it is spell casting from the back, or summoning minions that do the work for you, shooting a bow from far away, or going into melee combat with a two-handed weapon to, crush some skulls. Whatever it is, Path of Exile has a build that will suit your playstyle 100%. I've played Path of Exile for more than 1,000 hours at this point, and every week I see new builds that look very exciting to play and that I can't wait to try out. And sooner or later you will realize that the only limiting factor in Path of Exile is how much real-life time you can actually devote to playing Path of Exile. But before I will continue to go into more detail, when it comes to the classes, I'm going to spoil something for you, just a little bit, and that is that there's actually not only 6 classes, as you can see here, but there's actually a 7th class that you will unlock during the campaign. Now, this is a very, very special and unique class that is not like the other 6, and I do not recommend you as a new player to play that class, and that's why I especially will not go into detail when it comes to, that class. And again, I can only, suggest you do not use that class. I have played it once in my 1,000 hours, and yeah, it's also not that awesome. It's not the best class or anything like that. I think it's one of the least played classes in the entire game. Okay, then let's start with the first class. At first we have the Templar. The Templar is a mix of strength and intelligence, and like for example in World of Warcraft, where a warrior has 3 specializations, characters and classes in Path of Exile are the same, except of course design, but I'm not going to talk about detail when it comes to design. And for the Templar, these specializations, or ascendancies as they are called in Path of Exile, are the Inquisitor, that does a lot of elemental damage and has a very high life recovery. So for example, if you don't like dying to damage over time effects, then yeah, the Inquisitor is absolutely a good class for you. As well as the Hierophant, that is more of a normal spellcaster, but can also use totems to do the damage for him. And the Guardian, that is a support specialist, which is extremely nice if you play Path of Exile in a group. Yes, that is possible. You can play Path of Exile in a multiplayer version, basically with other people. And the Guardian can also be extremely tanky. Then we go on to the next class, which is the Shadow. The Shadow focuses on dexterity and intelligence, and the 3 ascendancies of the Shadow are the Assassin, that does a lot of damage and also has a high crit chance and focuses on doing critical strikes, as well as the Saboteur, that basically throws traps and mines. And yeah, traps and mines a bit special. I think that's too much for a beginner. Stay away from the Saboteur, I think. It's definitely a great playstyle. I personally enjoy it very much. Not many people do though, I believe, and generally not very beginner friendly. Then we have the Trickster, that is also more of a flexible damage dealer and can also specialize in dealing damage over time, especially in form of poison. We have the Marauder. The Marauder is more the classical warrior, right? The strength stacking, physical strength guy that just, beats guys to death. And the 3 ascendancies of the Marauder are the Juggernaut, which is very, very tanky. Like, the Juggernaut is unbelievably tanky. I've never seen, people tank stuff that some Juggernauts are tanking when it comes to like boss mechanics or AoE effects, and incredible. We have the Berserker, that is basically a glass cannon because he deals a lot of damage, but he also receives a lot of damage, he takes a lot of damage. And the Chieftain, that focuses on fire damage, where often physical damage that you do is converted into fire damage, can be built very tanky as well, and can also use totems to deal damage. We do have the Ranger, which is the typical bow character that focuses on dexterity. And the ascendancies are the Deadeye, that has a lot of damage potential and is especially awesome when it comes to firing projectiles. So if you like to fire projectiles that bounce off walls and you fire an extra projectile basically, then the Deadeye is for you. And I think it's one of the most played ascendancies for sure, and especially in the trade environment where you can trade with other people. We do have the Raider, that is a buff specialist and a high movement speed, basically are the key points when it comes to the Raider. And high movement speed is incredible. It feels incredible when you just run through a zone in a few seconds and nothing can really touch you. If you really like doing that, then Raider is definitely the class for you. We also have the Pathfinder, who is basically a flask specialist. Now, what flasks are and what they do, I will cover that in a different video, but basically flasks give you a temporary boost in stats, and the Pathfinder Ascendancy talent points, they basically allow you to enhance that even further, to either make the flask last longer or to gain additional effects when you use a flask. And also the Ascendancy focuses on doing poison damage. So if you like to poison things and die, watch them die of poison, then that's basically a good ascendancy for you. We also have the Duelist, that focuses on strength and dexterity. The 3 ascendancies of the Duelist are the Slayer, that does a lot of damage, focuses on two-handed weapons, and also has an Execute where he kills everything under 20% HP. Was it 10 or 12? 10 or 12? I think it's 20% HP, and who also leeches a lot of enemies. So lifesteal is basically a key part of being a Slayer. We have the Gladiator, that focuses on the other hand on one-handed weapon, and is especially good when it comes to bleed effects on your enemy. So you hit an enemy and the enemy bleeds, and the bleed effect is the main damage, not the hit. And the Gladiator excels in doing bleed effects and doing damage via bleeding. We also have the Champion, which has one of the strongest defenses in the game and also offers you increased aura effect. So for example, if you have an aura and when you activate that, it gains you armor. With the increased aura effect, you will receive more armor from that same aura, or as you would with another character that does not have the increased aura effect. Now, the Witch. The Witch focuses on intelligence, and I think the Witch is the most played class in Path of Exile by far. It's really very, very easy to play. Great builds you can do as a Witch, and let's see what the Witch can offer you. So the Witch focuses on intelligence, and the 3 ascendancies of the Witch are a Necromancer, where you summon minions, right? I think everyone knows the minion build. You summon them, they do the work, you get the credit. Perfect, right? You also have good defense with a Necromancer, which is a plus point. We do have the Elementalist, as the name suggests, right? You deal a lot of elemental damage. You can also use Golems, and which are also a type of minion, but Elementalists are generally rather squishy. We do also have the Occultist, that basically specializes in dealing chaos or cold damage, because what basically happens is that through the talent points, the resistance of nearby enemies, the chaos or cold resistance will be lowered, and so your damage will be increased. And the Occultist is also a curse specialist. Now, what curses are and what they do, I also will really cover that in another video, but just for general overview for you. Now, after I basically gave you a small introduction into for all the classes. You surely know what to play, don't you? So, do you have any idea what you were going to play? Probably not, right? But that's not a problem at all, because when I started playing, I had no idea what to play either. I switched builds a lot of times until I found a build that I really enjoyed playing, and that was the first time when I took that build to the end game. So don't feel bad if you only level a character to level 20 or maybe 30 or maybe even 10 and then switch to another one because it just doesn't feel that good. That's absolutely normal. But I have a suggestion for you to do for your first build, basically, and that would be to play a witch, and especially a necromancer that will use the Summon Raging Spirit skill. Now, what is that? Well, Summon Raging Spirit is an ability that will summon a short-lived flaming skull that rushes at nearby enemies and attacks them rapidly. Now, the great part here is you do not have to aim that ability, right? The skulls will look for their own target, right? You just summon them and they will do their own thing. You don't have to pay much attention to what they're doing. It's really an awesome skill. And as you can see in the bottom left, that's how basically the Raging Spirits look in game. And yeah, let's go over the pros and cons when it comes to using a Summon Raging Spirit. So first of all, a very, very big plus point is that it's a very safe playstyle. You can even stand behind a wall and summon the Raging Spirits, and they will travel around the wall to your target and will kill it for you, so you can be absolutely safe. Even if your minions die, which is something that I read about when people start playing a minion build, they're like, oh, my minions die all the time, I have to resummon them all the time. That's not a problem with Summon Raging Spirits, because they will vanish after a quick period of time anyway, right? So after a short time, they are gone and you will have to resummon them. If that's annoying for you, then summoning Raging Spirits is probably not the build for you, although it will get a little bit better in the end game, but you will still have to summon them manually. The great thing is also that you can absolutely focus on dodging boss mechanics, right? You just summon the Raging Spirits and they will kill the boss for you, and you can completely, step out of that void zone or will not get hit by a slam that maybe other people would get hit by because they actually have to attack themselves. Also, you can use the skill very, very early on. Sometimes people only switch to a skill at level 28 or maybe even sometimes even level 70. So depending on what skill you're using, it can take quite a lot of time until you can play and use that skill. And with Summon Raging Spirit, you can use that very early on, I believe level 4 or 5 or 6, depending on how slow you're leveling. And yeah, the skill can do pretty much everything in the game. For some things you may have to adjust the build, but other than that, it can do really everything in the game. Now, what is a negative aspect when it comes to using Summoning Raging Spirit? Well, minion skills are not for everyone. It can get very boring because all you do is you summon these and they do their things and you're just standing around kind of useless. Not everyone likes to do that. Sometimes people just like to do the work themselves, and if that's the case for you, that's absolutely fine. You do not have to use it. It's just a suggestion that I'm giving you when it comes to what build you might start your first playthrough with. And it has not the fastest clear speed. Now, for a new player, this is absolutely unnecessary, right? I don't even know why I wrote that down. It's really only for end game content, and even then, I think you can just ignore that point. It's really for a new player. It has no meaning for a new player. But generally, if you've seen clips of Path of Exile, I don't know, where people just zoom through an instance or a map, how it's called, in seconds, basically, that's not Summon Raging Spirits. But nonetheless, it's a great boss killer, and usually these builds that, rush through a map in a few seconds, sometimes they have very, very low boss damage. So that's not the case. And I personally also have rather high boss damage and a bit of a worse clear speed than to struggle with doing bosses and constantly dying. That's not what I like to do. Another minus point that can be fixed though in the end game is that when your Raging Spirits die too quickly, you have no chance of dealing damage, right? Because if your Raging Spirits are dead constantly and do not have time to attack, there is no damage, right? You don't deal any damage. But there's a fix for that in the end game that makes your Summoning Spirits basically immune to damage for 4 seconds after you've summoned them, which is awesome, right? Which helps you a lot when it comes to, surviving deadly encounter. Now, the next thing that you will encounter in Path of Exile after you started playing is, of course, the talent tree. Now, this is where people get absolutely overwhelmed. They have no idea what to do. They see this tree and, you know, their mind goes blank. They black out and they're like, wow, yeah, okay, yeah, I think I'd rather play League of Legends. You know, at least my teammates are very bad usually, but at least I know the game, right? And I can absolutely understand why that is the case. Although the tree might look very frightening at first, if we take a closer look, for example, as you remember, we wanted to play Summon Raging Spirit, right? Which is a minion skill. So if you search for minion-related nodes on the tree, and actually we're going to start here, right? This is our starting position on the tree if we play a witch. But if we look out for these minion nodes, we will see, oh, okay, these are, you know, for the most part in the top left corner of the screen, right? There's nothing in the right side, nothing in the bottom right is empty too. So we do not actually have to go in these areas here. Why would we go here? There is nothing is there for us. So this means already that we can just limit ourselves to this area. And which also makes it a lot easier for us already to have you know, a plan when it comes to how we spend our talent points that we gather throughout the playthrough. Now, I am personally not a fan of giving you a complete guide, like 100% guide. I think when you're really new to the game, what you should do, you should really experience the game, you know, by yourself. Will you make mistakes? Yes, absolutely. Will you play inefficiently? Will it take you 100 times longer than a normal player to get through the campaign, maybe, or to the end game? Yes, absolutely. But that is absolutely fine. You do not have to worry. You do not have to feel bad about that. I think if you're a person that really likes to explore a game, you know, by themselves, you're probably not watching this video though, by the way. But if that's the case, it's great. I feel like that's a great way to learn Path of Exile. The problem is that there are so many things, and that the in-game wiki, well, they actually disabled it, I think, and they reworked the actual wiki on the internet. But without, you know, without help from the outside, it can be a very, very daunting. And at some point you will be stuck simply because the game does not explain certain aspects very well. And so you will have to reach out basically, to find some help to continue your playthrough or to successfully complete a campaign. Maybe some will not, maybe some will, but anyway, that's a good tip for me. Now, if you actually notice, okay, I've played Summoning Raging Spirit for a while now, what do I do next, right? Or I don't like this skill. I want to play something else. I want to play, for example, Toxic Rain, right? I just found the ability. I don't know. I've read it. It looks cool. What do I play? How do I actually, you know, choose my talents for that? Now, one important factor is every skill has tags right under the name. As you can see here, the tags for Toxic Rain are attack, AoE, chaos, duration, projectile, and bow. What you need to do is you need to simply search for these specific terms in your talent tree. And I did that here for chaos. So as you can see here for chaos, okay, so chaos is much more spread out. It's not as compact as minion, but it seems that the right side is favored. And you know what? What starts on the right side? Right here, right? The Ranger. The Ranger starts on the right side of the tree as well as the Shadow. Now, probably these two classes are very, very good when it comes to chaos damage, dealing chaos damage. And of course, the thing that in Path of Exile, what some people know and maybe will also write in the comments, you can theoretically play every build with every class. It's just that it's a lot easier for certain classes to play certain builds simply because of the starting position on the tree. But theoretically, you could play a Marauder that actually starts down here and try to play a Chaos build as well. You would only have to travel all the way up here to these nodes, and of course it would be very inefficient and you would lose a lot of talent points that you could otherwise spend on nodes that would actually improve your damage, instead only your attributes, because these small ones here, they only increase your attributes most of the time. Okay, but yeah, after that, you beat the campaign, right? You basically successfully managed to beat the campaign, and you think, oh, I finally understood the talent tree, right? But yeah, what happens? The end game of Path of Exile opens up for you, and what does it entail? That's right. A new talent tree, of course, and there it is. It's the Atlas talent tree. That's the talent tree for the end game. So when you thought, okay, I finally managed to understand it a little bit, to be able to basically orientate myself, to know where to spend my points. next thing happens and there's a new tree for you to spend new points, and you're overwhelmed again. So, but this is Path of Exile in a nutshell, right? And I hope you enjoyed my introduction to Path of Exile, and I really hope that instead of being like scared or aimless, I could, was able to basically how do you say that? I was able to transform these I was able to transform these emotions to excitement and confidence that you will be able to beat the campaign, that you will be able to get, through Path of Exile to successfully complete your first playthrough. Now again, if you enjoy my content, I would very much appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel. In the following videos that I plan, I will try to cover everything. As I said, like Flask, we talked about Flask, we talked about curses, right? All these are aspects that I will be covering in future videos, but Path of Exile is huge. There are so many things to cover, so it can take quite a while until I manage to complete a video on every topic that you might be interested in. But if you're looking forward to these, if you enjoy these, I would very much appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel to support me. Okay, have a great day, and maybe have a great New Year as well, because we have December. It's the 25th of December right now. So yeah, 6 more days and then the New Year's begins. And I hope you have a great New Year, guys. See you.